The letter Tet is associated with the womb and with birth, which is not surprising since its numerical value is 9, and a child is typically within the womb for 9 months before it is born. The letter is associated with the goodness of birth and new life and new creation and creativity, and with creation itself, which God called good. Indeed, God called it very good. The Hebrew word for good is tov, which begins with the letter tet. As Matthew Fox, a former Dominican and now Episcopal priest, said in his book Original Blessing, before there was original sin, there was original blessing. We were originally made as good. And that's still part of our original identity. According to the book of Genesis, we are all made in the image of God. Although our sinful behavior may tarnish and blemish that image, we are ultimately and originally good. That's an important message of the letter Tet. And our job, our spiritual work, is to be co-workers with God in restoring ourselves to that original goodness through prayer, through praying the Psalms, through scripture, through study, and through humility. In the Tet stanza of Psalm 119, verses 65 to 72, the poet says in verse 71, "It is good, it is tov, it is good for me that I have been afflicted, that I might learn your statutes." So here the psalm emphasizes the goodness that can result from times of difficulty and affliction. The psalmist says that it was good for him to experience affliction because that experience led him to learn God's statutes. This verse underscores an important message inherent to the meaning of the letter Tet, a message that is foundational for 12-step recovery programs. That is the message that claims that there is often goodness in hitting rock bottom. In my own experience with addiction to nicotine, I found it was necessary to first bottom out before I could admit my powerlessness and my need for help. It's not that my addiction or affliction were good in and of themselves, but it was good that I had been afflicted so that I might learn the 12 steps. Just like it was good for the psalmist to be afflicted so that he might learn God's statutes. So Franciscan priest Richard Rohr has written this book called Breathing Underwater, Spirituality and the 12 Steps. And he explains this powerful perspective on the letter Tet when he writes on page 3, "Until you bottom out and come to the limits of your own fuel supply, there is no reason for you to switch to a higher octane of fuel. For that is what is happening. Why would you? You will not learn to actively draw upon a larger source until your usual resources are depleted and revealed as wanting. In fact, you will not even know there is a larger source until your own resources fail you. Until and unless there is a person, situation, event, idea, conflict, or relationship that you cannot manage, you will never find the true manager, capital T, capital M, true manager. So God makes sure that several things will come your way that you cannot manage on your own. That might be the birth of a child, or even the loss of a child. Richard Rohr says it's the imperial ego, that ego that has to control everything like an emperor. It's the imperial ego that has to go, and only powerlessness can do the job of transformation correctly. The cause of one's realization of one's powerlessness may or may not be good in and of itself, but it is indeed good when one comes to this realization and then learns to let go of that ego or that false self. Because it is the ego, the false self, that so often tarnishes the image of God in which we are made. It is the ego, the false self, that often blemishes our original goodness. And so it is good for us to relinquish it. Relinquish it as best as we can. And that is the invitation of the letter Tet, especially when understood in light of this stanza of Psalm 119, the Tet stanza. So I wonder what other expressions of goodness you see in this stanza of Psalm 119.